the gavel. Last used in 1952. Good morning, everyone. I apologize for having to use the gavel, but we're running a little behind and I wanted to make sure that we covered off today. Okay, so good morning and welcome to the Vancouver City Council meeting of Tuesday, January the 20th, 2026. Now, this meeting is being held in person and by electronic means. Council members and the public may participate by either method. Any members joining electronically are reminded to enable, is everyone here today? Okay, to enable video to confirm quorum. The meeting is being live streamed on the city's website and YouTube, and meeting progress will be updated regularly on X at Van City Clerk. Now, in case of an emergency requiring an evacuation, there are 2 exits located just beyond those glass doors and to the left after the pillar. If those doors are obstructed for any reason whatsoever, there are 4 exits on the side here. Please use the stairs, do not use the elevator, and if you require any kind of mobility assistance, please stay in place and one of our super friendly team members will come by and give you a hand. Also, if the meeting gets a little heated today, there is a defibrillator at the end of the hallway, and so if you feel like you're clutching your chest, put up your hand if you can, and we'll make sure we access that apparatus. I do want to acknowledge that we're also hosting today's council meeting on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and I do want to thank them for their generosity and hospitality and loving care they show this great land that we get to live, work, and play on. I also want to acknowledge our incredible team members throughout the city of Vancouver who work with a lot of passion, and they work incredibly hard every single day to make the city a better place for all of us. And so with that, can we please have a roll call?
Mayor Sim in the chair. Councillor Cribillon.
Present.
Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly.
Present.
Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague. Councillor Klassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner. Councillor Zhou.
Present.
Councillor Orr. And Councillor Maloney. You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. So today we have a proclamation. January the 27th marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day of profound historical and moral significance, and today we gather in solemn remembrance. On January the 27th, we mark the 81st anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp in 1945, a date designated by the United Nations General Assembly through Resolution 67 as a moment for the world to remember the victims of the Holocaust. As we reflect on this dark chapter in human history, the City of Vancouver stands alongside the Jewish community, Canadians from all walks of life, and the global community in condemning anti-Semitism, racism, hate, and genocide of all forms. We honor the memory of the 6 million Jewish lives lost, as well as the countless others persecuted, and we recognize the extraordinary resilience and courage of Holocaust survivors. In partnership with Vancouver's Jewish community, we reaffirm our commitment to preserving these stories, educating future generations, and advocating for a world rooted in dignity, justice, and respect. And we're deeply grateful for the contributions of the Jewish community and for the dedication of those who continue to uphold human rights and stand against hatred and intolerance. And so I'd like to now invite my fellow council members up to, as a team, read the proclamation. And before I get started, I'd actually like to share a personal story, if that's okay. You know, in this, I don't want to say crazy time, in this incredibly tumultuous, it feels like a tumultuous time in human history where there's so much division and hate and false narratives being propagated on a whole host of issues. I think it's really, really important to reaffirm that we have to keep the true stories alive. And one thing I've had the honor, the very humble honor of being part of is years ago, I actually toured through Auschwitz. with their family to keep those stories alive. And if anyone has had the opportunity to do it, you know what I'm talking about. And if anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to go through Auschwitz, I highly encourage you to do it, and you will see the ugliness in human nature. And you can't unsee what happened, not just to the Jewish community, but a whole host of communities that actually, whose families went through there. And so today, once again, is just our little way of honoring the memories and the stories of what happened, and keeping those stories alive. And so with that, our team, we're going to read the proclamation together. So.
International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Whereas this year on International Holocaust Remembrance Day, we commemorate the 81st anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau.
And whereas January 27th is designated by United Nations General Assembly as International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
And whereas since 2005, the United Nations and its member states have held commemoration ceremonies to mark the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau and to honor the victims and the survivors of the Holocaust.
And whereas the purpose of International Holocaust Remembrance Day is to serve as a date of the official commemoration of the victims of the Nazi regime and to promote Holocaust education throughout the world.
And whereas we join with the Vancouver Holocaust Education Center and our Jewish community on an annual day to commemorate and honor the International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Now, therefore, I, Ken Sim, the Mayor of the City of Vancouver, on behalf of all of our elected officials and everyone who chooses to work at the City of Vancouver every single day, do hereby very humbly proclaim January the 27th, 2026 as International Holocaust Remembrance Day in the City of Vancouver. So I'd like to now please welcome survivor Miriam Dattel, who will say a few words on behalf of the Jewish community, and then she'll be followed by Ezra Shankin, the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Vancouver.
Hello, my name is Hannah Marazzi, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vancouver Holocaust Education Center. And I just want to share a few words about Miriam just before she speaks. Miriam joined the VHEC's Child Survivor Group only a handful of years ago, and she began to courageously share her story through recorded testimony and as an outreach speaker. Miriam's story asks us to bear witness to her and her family's resilience during the Holocaust while reflecting on the ongoing impact of genocide. Please join me in welcoming Miriam to the podium.
Thank you for inviting me on this day of the 81st celebration, if we can call it, remembrance of the Auschwitz. I'm dedicated it to my grandmother, Irma Stern, my cousin, Tommy Stern, and his mother, who were murdered on May 1944. If we were not, my parents did what they did, I would have been joining my grandmother. But the fact that I got sick when I was a little baby and my mother didn't join my grandmother, I'm here standing to tell you the story. I was born in 1940 in Zagreb. In 1941, April, the Germans, Nazis came in and the Ustascha collaborated, and the deportation started. So my parents, who were planning to go to Budapest, where my grandmother was, didn't know what exactly to do. Eventually, they found out that if they go to the city of Split, which was on the Adriatic Sea, divided between Croatia and Italy, they will be able to somehow survive. So they traveled with me. We were in Split, and in Split, my father was a musician, and after a couple of months, he was getting a message that it's better that we disappear because there will be deportation from Split. So the Italians took us over, put us on a ship. That ship had about 200 Jews. All the men were shackled, and women, I was, I think, the only baby according to the history. And we arrived to Italy. In Italy, we were by train to reach the small city called Vicenza. And there, the 200 people were spread among 10 buses, small buses. And we were like driven to a village. That village called Valle del Pasubio, we were staying there for 2 years as interned, what meant that we were not allowed, my parents, not allowed to move a certain area, not allowed to have any relationship with the people who lived in the village, and so on. They had to report every day in the morning and in the evening presence. So in 1943, when I was 3 years old, and also my cousin was born because we were with my aunt and uncle there. My aunt made some connection with the underground when she gave birth to my cousin. And my father got a notice from one of the police guys and said, please, tomorrow disappear. So when we needed to disappear, we had 2 members of the Italian underground who came and picked us up, and at the same time gave us false identity. The main thing that I remember as a child, I was 3 years old, and I was born Branka Friedman. I had to change my identity, and I was given a new name. I was Franca Filippi. I had to learn my parents' name, and I was told never to utter a word in the Croatian language, which was the one that I spoke with my parents. And so we started the trips from one house to another in the villages around the area, because my mother always felt that she didn't want to endanger the villagers, although we had the false identity. So we did it like in 18 different hiding places. And eventually we ended up in a mill, in a windmill. We were there until a time where there was a battle around that area, and a German officer knocked on the door of the mill. My uncle opened the door, my uncle spoke 5 languages perfect. And he was asking questions, the German. My uncle managed to convince him that he's a refugee from the south and so on. And then the Italian friends came and said, okay, I'm sorry, we can't really help you anymore. Why don't you get on the train, travel to Milan? And in Milan, you will mingle there. There's about 2 million people. It's okay. So we were in Milan. What I remember very well is constant bombing, which I learned later that it was the Allies, but nevertheless, we were running to the shelter constantly. And my father made some contact, and he found out that our papers, our false identities were very weak, and that probably if somebody will catch us, we will be finished. So the idea was, well, you should go to the area of the Lake Como, and from there start walking to Switzerland and cross the border because you will be safe. And that's what happened. I found myself in Como in the forest. We had a guide for a little while, but he left us. He said he doesn't go any further. And my aunt was carrying my cousin in her backpack. I was holding her hand, and my uncle was kind of sick. My parents were carrying all the whatever they were able to carry, and we started walking. And we walked 8 hours during the night until before we reached the border. We actually reached like a mesh wire, and we started digging. And I remember myself digging. I was 4 years old, and we managed to go under the mesh, under these wires, and slide down on a big kind of boulders, and all sat down, and nobody had any energy. But my father was very stubborn, and he decided that with having 2 kids and them, that we need to survive. And he started scouring the area. It was night. There were 2 lights in the distance, one on the right, one on the left. And there was some discussion between my father and my uncle about which one is closer. But my father, in his stubbornness, went to his side. He went, and he managed to find the Swiss border. And he entered. There were 2 Swiss guards. He asked the guards, they asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm here with my family and I want to come in, I want to survive." And they said, "But the border is closed." My father started negotiating and saying, "You're not going to allow 2 kids to be murdered, so let us in." And again, one of my vividest memories, an Italian, a Swiss border guard is a German shepherd coming towards me, picking me up, and carrying me to the station. From there, I was put in a place that I never knew that we were there for about 3 weeks, but it was like a sanitizing station in Switzerland, where the first thing that they did, they put me in a cubicle, a glass cubicle, and they naked, of course, and sprayed me with DDT. From there, we were transferred to a place that was above Lugano, which is an Italian part of Switzerland. And there was there a children's refugee camp. And so the Swiss separated the kids from the parents. I was separated, so was my cousin, but he was too young to understand. I understood very well that I didn't have my parents around. But it was a children's camp. The parents were separated as well. And so the women were bused every day to the camp so they can do all the chores. So they had like a group of managers, but everything else was done by the resident parents. We were there until the war ended, and then we stayed for a while in Switzerland. But Switzerland said, nobody stays here. You can go to the United States. You can go back to Zagreb. And then my parents chose to go back to Zagreb. They wanted to know who is alive. because they didn't know anything about who in the family still survived. And they put us on a train, which I can't believe to this day that we were traveling 3 days in an empty, no roof. It was like a train for logs of wood. And so 3 days like this to Zagreb. When we arrived in Zagreb, the apartment, everything that belonged to us was gone. There were other people living in the apartment. And eventually we got some lodging with my aunt and uncle. And so we ended up living with them since 1941, all the way till they all passed in this. So that's kind of the story of survival. From 46 to 49, I was in Zagreb, the communism, so I learned the language again, and also some Russian. Because in grade 2 it was Russian, and in grade 3 we moved, finished grade, emigrated to Israel. I had my education in Israel. I became a nurse, loved it. Then in 1973, I moved to Canada. We moved to Montreal. I continued with my profession. I worked 27 years in Montreal. Then my daughter is sitting here, moved to Vancouver, and I decided that it's good to kind of go and stay with her in this area. I also want to say that it's very important for me to do what I'm doing, talking and trying to give the facts that have people suffered. I was always thinking, never again. Unfortunately, these days, I no longer can think about that. It's never again. Because I feel that this hatred I understood that was around me somehow nourished this. I have only
It's very hard to follow that. I try in these moments when I'm with our survivors to cherish every word that they say, to have their words sear into my subconscious so that I can carry on beyond their days, their truth, their lived experience. I want to take a moment to thank our city council for making this opportunity available, and to thank you for all being here, each one of you taking the time to be with us in this moment. I want to thank also Sarah Kirby Young, who really spearheaded the naming of this day and putting it into the official calendar. As obvious as it may feel today, it took the leadership of many around this council to ensure that this moment was ensconced in our annual cycle, so that our beyond the days of our survivors that we hold this day sacred within our city, and we learn from it. Last night was Shloshim, the 30th day of mourning for the victims of the attack on Bondi Beach. I had a chance to gather with members of our community, including our Chabad rabbis, who spend much of their lives doing outreach, building spiritual journeys, bringing love and embracing community members across the spectrum of observance and identity. It was, in fact, their event in Bondi that was attacked on the first night of Hanukkah. It was, in fact, their Rabbi Eli Schlanger of blessed memory, who was leading that event and lost his life, along with children and Holocaust survivors. But we heard last night from the mother of a Chabad young rabbi who had survived, who had been shot twice. Why? Because as he took cover behind a vehicle, he saw that an Australian police officer, a Sydney police officer, had been shot. And he ran out into the open to render aid to that police officer. And while he was rendering aid, he was shot twice himself and has had to endure 11 surgeries. After going through a moment like the Shoah, it would not be surprising for a group like the Jewish people to turn inward, to care just for ourselves. We were betrayed in many ways by the people closest to us, the people we marched with, the people who used us as tools and then later sent us off on the last of the trains. We could have said, forget about the world. We've done enough. But we didn't. A generation that could have been lost became a consequential generation, one of the most. A generation of not just survivors, but thrivers. That won Nobel Prizes, cured diseases, and whose children and grandchildren ran out into the line of fire to save lives, even in a moment in which they could have cowered behind the car. This is clearly a frustrating time for our Jewish people. Because as we continue to step up, the forces of hate creep in deeper. We become a political calculation. We become a means to an end by so many politicians today. The industrialized killing of Jews during the Holocaust did not start with guns. It did not start with knives. It started with words. It started with moral compromises. It started about affordability, about housing. Well, we wanted to make the world a better place, and the only thing we needed to do was get rid of our Jews. People had good stories to tell about their intentions, what they intended to create. But rest assured, all of those who tried to use the sacrifice of Jews to further their political agendas, each one of their careers remains with an asterisk. And that is something that we have to remember today. The memory of the Holocaust is to remind us that the ends don't always justify the means. What we believe and how we do what we do matters as much as the things that we accomplish in the end. And that's why standing up here today is so critical for us. Because we understand that we're living in a time in which politicians are being challenged to turn on the Jewish community. And do it for a myriad of reasons. But yet you stand right here. And I want to remind you that we see you and we appreciate you. And that every time that we stand here together is a blessing for us as a Jewish community, but also us as a city. So I wish for you, our counselors, our leaders, that you continue to remember that the means are as important as the ends. That we need you now more than ever, and we need you to stand with us. And as we cry out, we hope that you hear our cry and remember the covenant that we have with each other, and that we work together to create a better city. I want to finish by thanking our Vancouver Holocaust Education Center. These are incredible servants. I see Hannah back there, our incredible leader, and so many who are here who have been the voices and creators of this Holocaust Education Center. May it continue to bring light out into the world, to educate those about the difference between good and evil, and inform our society and help us move forward. Thank you all.
Would anyone like to come up here to commemorate in honor of the day with a photo up in the chamber here? Okay, everyone. All right, everyone. I'm going to get started again. Okay, so the plan for today, we're going to break at noon for lunch, followed by the in-camera meeting, return at 3 p.m. to continue to deal with the remainder of the agenda, adjourn or recess by 5 p.m. as we have a public hearing at 6 p.m. If we recess, the reconvene date is Thursday, January the 22nd, 2026 at 3 p.m. So in camera, if we can politely ask the individuals to move away from the sensor. Thanks, Sandra. All right, council is required to meet in camera later this week. The reasons and authority under the Vancouver Charter are listed in the agenda. Would someone like to move a motion to go into camera later this week? Thank you, Councillor Meisner, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. All right. Minutes 1 are from the council meeting following the Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities on November the 26th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Klassen, thank you. Councillor Meisner, seconded. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 2 are from the Auditor General Committee meeting on December the 4th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Klassen, thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Joe. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 3 are from the public hearing on December the 4th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Someone like to move adoption? Councillor Kirby-Young, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Montague. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 4 are from the council meeting on December the 9th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Montague, seconded by Councillor Kirby-Young. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 5 are from the public hearing on December the 9th, 11th, and 16th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Montague, I think, seconded by Councillor Joe. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 6 are from the council meeting following the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services on December the 10th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Klassen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kirby-Young. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minute 7 are from the Special Council Declaration of Dangerous Building at 341 East Hastings Street, Vancouver, meeting on December the 10th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Meisner, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, council will now consider matters adopted on consent. We have reports 1 and 3 through 6 and refer reports 1 through 16 on the consent agenda for council's consideration. We will hold report number 2 to hear from speakers. Council may adopt the recommendations for reports 1 and 3 through 6 and refer reports 1 through 16 on consent. Does any member wish to hold any of the items for debate or questions to team members? Councillor Klassen.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to hold report 1 and 5 for questions, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Klassen. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else in the queue. Before we consider the consent agenda, if anyone believes that they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Seeing no one in the queue, we have sure I got this right here. 1. Okay, so we have reports 3, 4, and 6, and refer reports 1 through 16 for the consent approval. Would someone like to move adoption of the recommendations before? Thank you, Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. So, the following have been approved on the consent agenda. Just bear with me for 1 sec. Okay. Report number 3, appointment of, actually, clerk, just a matter of policy procedure. I do have to declare a conflict on the appointment of external auditor. Will that suffice, just declaring it now? Great, thank you. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so we, through my companies and personally, we have hired and we continue to hire KPMG as our auditors and financial advisors. Okay, so we have report number 3, appointment of external auditor for 2026. Report number 4, 2026 supplemental street cleaning grant, downtown or DTES Project Hope. And report number 6, closure and sale of a portion of road adjacent to 2235 Charles Street. We also have referral reports 1 through 16. So number 1, CD-1 776 text amendment. 118 through 150 Robson Street, now 828 Canby Street. Number 2, CD-1 454 text amendment 215 West 1st Avenue. CD-1 rezoning, report number 3, CD-1 rezoning 8080 Yukon Street. Report number 4, CD-1 rezoning 1613 through 1625 Nanaimo Street. Report number 5, CD-1 rezoning 7051 Ash Crescent, Langara Gardens. Report number 6, CD-1 rezoning 1402 through 1462 Burrard Street, 1401 through 1451 Cornby Street, and 900 Pacific Street. Report number 7, CD-1 rezoning 800 through 876 Granville Street. Report number 8, CD-1 rezoning 1550 West 11th Avenue. Report number 1, rezoning 6507 through 6527 Maple Street. Report number 10, CD-1 rezonings I 15 through 27 West Hastings Street and I 8 through 36 West Cordova Street. Report number 11, CD-1 rezoning, 10 East 11th Avenue. Report number 12, CD-1 rezoning, 4967 through 5017 Main Street. Report number 13, CD-1, 511 text amendment, 138 East 7th Avenue. Report number 14, CD-1 rezoning, 324 West 10th Avenue. And report number 15, CD-1 rezoning, 1405 Main Street and 1510 Quebec Street. Oh, and report number 16, enabling greater flexibility for childcare in residential zones, amendments to the zoning and development bylaw. Okay. So the first report we have is report number 1, washroom strategic framework and 2026 actions. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes that they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict that they wish to disclose? Seeing none, this item does have a presentation, and we do have team members here to present the item.
Good morning, Council. One second, sorry, Council. You're probably seeing the presenter side, right? Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, good to go. Sorry for that, Council. Good morning. My name is Darryl Lagerquist. I'm an Associate Director in our Strategy and Project Support Office. And it's a privilege today, Council, to introduce to you the proposed City of Vancouver washroom framework and a set of 2026 actions. Here's our agenda for today, Council. We'll get into a bit of background on why washrooms matter and why they are a little bit more challenging to deliver than one might think. We'll get into our current network and the various roles that we play, and then get into the framework itself to help improve and strengthen our network through practical annual actions each year. So just in terms of background, Council has consistently directed the city to strengthen our public washroom network, from the Vancouver plan to the accessibility strategy, the older persons framework, as well as a series of motions in recent years. And so together, these confirm that that washrooms are not just a simple amenity for our city, but an important municipal service. We know that washrooms are essential for inclusive access and dignity for all members of society, but specifically our most vulnerable populations, from older persons, young families, and those experiencing health and housing challenges, and really allow them to fully participate in civic life, especially out enjoying our public realm and green spaces. They're essential for clean, safe, and welcoming public spaces, healthy and sanitary streets, and just an overall sense of civic pride. And we know that they're critical to Vancouver's tourism, events, and visitor economy. But it's also important to highlight why washrooms are sometimes more challenging to deliver than we might think. They are complicated because even one washroom requires coordinated planning, construction, servicing, and operations, and varying degrees of operational models. And they're complex because washrooms in higher needs areas require different funding approaches, partnerships with community and other orders of government, and service approaches that are tailored to the specific need in which they are servicing. So with that said, Council, I now want to move into our current network of washrooms. So today, Vancouver directly supports 165 city-funded washrooms spread across several departments. So our Vancouver Park Board colleagues deliver the vast majority of our network, roughly 80% or so of our publicly accessible washrooms. The city directly operates about 15 spread across our automatic public toilets, community centers, and comfort stations. And then our Vancouver Public Library network has 21 publicly accessible washrooms. There are also a number delivered through grants and in kind with some of our partnerships with service agencies. And across all of these models, Council, while it does create a broad citywide network, there are different models, different funding approaches, which is exactly why we need a coordinated framework needed so that we can all head in the right direction across the many great teams that are delivering washrooms in our city. So now I want to situate Vancouver's washroom provision relative to other jurisdictions in North America. So our 165 washrooms equates to roughly 23, 24 washrooms per 100,000 people. And across large North American cities, published washroom data typically fall in the low teens to mid-20s, depending on how each jurisdiction defines their washrooms. So Vancouver does sit in the upper end of that range especially when you consider year-round access for public washrooms. That said, we do recognize that there are important gaps in our community, certainly within higher needs areas and in how the network interacts with specific communities such as older persons, young families, and those people experiencing homelessness. And I want to move to the various roles that the city plays. So at the top here, and the relative cost implications, Council. At the top, we have our direct city operations. These are automatic public toilets, the comfort stations. These are definitely the costliest per unit or per toilet, but they're essential in higher need and higher impact locations. In the middle, we have our city family operations, so Vancouver Public Library and Vancouver Park Board colleagues. This forms the core of our city-funded network, but they do benefit from economies of scope being embedded within larger facilities that get to share staffing, maintenance, and other costs. And at the bottom, we have our role as a facilitator and convener, generally the lowest costs. And this is where we want to leverage partnerships with nonprofits, agencies, and other orders of government to enable others to deliver washrooms, especially where we can't do it alone. And I think just one thing to point out, Council, at the heart of the framework, as you'll see, is really balancing our roles across these three different types so that we are maximizing every investment and effort across the portfolio. So now moving into the framework, I just want to show one slide for Council's awareness before diving in. So this map here shows where we have priority areas of demand based on our current inventory. So those darker purple areas, these are high demand areas, high traffic areas that are more than a 10-minute walking distance from a publicly accessible washroom. The medium purple there are more than a 5-minute walking distance to washrooms. Another way to flip that, Council, is about 70% of our high demand areas are within a 10-minute walking distance to a publicly accessible washroom. The analysis here is again based on where people typically congregate, so village centers, destinations within our city, transit hubs, things like that. And it's not lost on staff that this does not fully capture the picture as we see out in the community, because it doesn't show where we have higher social needs or maybe where more vulnerable populations are overrepresented in the community. So now moving into the framework, I just want to just say that part of this background work really helps guide the framework and really positions the city to fill some of these gaps where we have limited capital and operating dollars, where we need to leverage partnerships, and where we need to prioritize wayfinding improvements in the public realm so that people can access a washroom when they need one. So a little bit about the framework before diving in, Council. At its core, it provides clear, high-level direction setting that will guide annual departmental work plans. So we have a shared vision, mission, and objectives that will inform the actions moving forward. Second, it brings together what's currently fragmented. There's lots of great work happening across departments, and the framework creates that coordinated approach to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction rather than project by project and thinking strategically across the network. Third, it allows us to be practical and adaptable. So while the framework and Council's pending decision today sets that direction, It's designed to evolve to community needs, funding, and just as conditions change on the ground. And so each year, the actions that will come forward through council, if approved today, will be achievable within that year or significantly achievable and adapted to those changing circumstances as they evolve. And then finally, council, the framework does position us to leverage partnerships, defining where our role is and positions the city, as mentioned, as a facilitator and convener, and knowing where we need support from other orders of government and where we need other agencies to step in. So council, I'm not going to read everything here, but our vision in the framework is that everyone in Vancouver has reasonable access to a network of clean, safe, accessible, and dignified washrooms when they need one. And the city will do that by supporting access to a broader network of accessible, clean, and safe washrooms that enhance the quality of life for all residents, visitors, promoting hygiene, health, inclusivity in our community. And there's a number of guiding principles, starting in Appendix A of the report, council, I believe it's page 7 or 8. We highlight a little bit more there. But how do we turn this into action? So we have our 3 pillars that are guiding the objectives within the framework itself. First, we want to deliver washrooms in an efficient and effective manner. We want to make sure washrooms are reliable and financially sustainable. We want to leverage partnerships and advocacy, so expanding access beyond what the city can do alone. This is working with those community partners and other orders of government. And then lastly, supporting the public through wayfinding. Through some of the feedback that we hear in 311 and other engagements, the public simply just don't know where there might be a publicly accessible washroom. So part of our efforts for the next year will be focused on that. And so together, these pillars help align our objectives. They're beginning on page 8 in the report, but just wanted to situate that around these 3 pillars for council. Before getting into the actions themselves, I want to touch on new and renewed washrooms that we can expect this year. Just for council's awareness, this is separate from today's decision. These are approved under the current capital plan. We have washrooms coming in Tisdale Park, which will be a welcome addition for any baseball players and fans there. That's a new standalone multi-stall washroom going there. In Marpole Community Center, this will be a co-located washroom that's accessed from the exterior. And then we are installing Portland loos within the public realm in Gastown and at Main and Powell. And there's a number of renewals there across various parks at Second Beach, and the renovation of the Kerrisdale Arena will also be getting an exterior access washroom as part of that work. So moving into how we translate the framework into action, you'll notice that there are 2 ways that we are doing this, council. We have actions that are set for citywide action around that whole network, and then we have actions that are more focused on vulnerable community members, such as older persons or those experiencing health and housing challenges. On citywide actions, moving forward, we will be embedding public washroom considerations into our capital planning process so we can identify those opportunities early. That will come through council for decision as part of the capital planning process, but it allows us to identify them early on in the process. We'll be exploring alternative service delivery models. Again, we want to leverage partnerships to expand that access where maybe we cannot do it alone, or we need other partners who are offering those integrated services to offer washrooms as well. We're piloting new technologies. I'll point out our park board colleagues are rolling out automatic locking systems to reduce the resource pressure on our teams out there locking and unlocking our facilities in parks and field houses. And then lastly, and certainly not least, is improving our data quality and the public visibility of where washrooms are. So we'll be doing that and making sure that that's actually reflected in publicly consumable platforms like Google Maps and the Go Here app. We are a partner with the Go Here app. It's developed by the Crohn's and Colitis Society, and so we'll make sure our information is also up to date there. Similarly, in the downtown east side, that will also be happening, and we'll be installing signage this year in those high traffic areas and in more vulnerable communities to point people to where those washrooms are so they can easily be found. We hope to learn from the pilot of the Portland loos that are currently kicking off this year for future site planning. Our automatic public toilets are quite challenging, and we hope to learn from that and maybe expand that, but we will see how that rolls out. And then lastly, Council, on the vulnerable community actions, we want to increase our advocacy to the province for sustained investment, especially in the attendant-based models. And you'll note in the report, the attendant-based models are required for a few reasons, generally just to address the complex social contexts that are there, maintain safety and usability. But those attendants also connect those community members to very important services that they need, outreach and other supports. And so we'll be increasing our efforts there in partnership with the province to get some sustained funding. So I'll leave it there, Council, on the actions. And in terms of next steps, pending the decision today, we'll continue those actions, and we intend to return in Q4. We actually intend to return annually if approved, to provide progress updates on approved actions of the previous year, and then seek direction on future actions aligned to the framework if approved today. Mr. Mayor, that's all for me. Here to help with questions or provide it, field it to team members. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, council members, you will have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of our team members. Councillor Dominato, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation and update. This is a lot of great work and something we've talked about for a number of years at this table. I'm just going to address questions I addressed in our briefing just for the public record. And the first one was around, could you just expand a little bit on advocacy around having washrooms in public transit centers, particularly key hubs, as we have the Broadway line underway and near completion? That came up quite a bit last term about situating washrooms. Can you just speak to that advocacy with TransLink in the province?
Yeah, we have good connections with TransLink. They're guided by their customer experience action plan. They're also faced with similar challenges that we have, Councillor, on washrooms, and they also are having to distribute that network across all of Metro Vancouver. I am aware that as part of that plan, they will be putting new washrooms in at the commercial Broadway station, but that's the extent of their provision. But we intend to engage them further as part of our advocacy efforts.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I think it's important. You referenced alternative delivery models, and I'm curious if number of years ago, there was a study done around exploring incentives for small businesses to offer up their washrooms. And I'm curious if that might be part of your alternative delivery model and looking at some incentives that might encourage some businesses to make their washrooms available for public use beyond.
Yeah, yes, it will. And we intend to bring those back to council for consideration. We know, for example, the city of Edmonton has a program. So we'll be looking to peer cities to see what we can learn and bring that forward as part of that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's great. My other question is, it's been referenced in the past that the Portland loos can be quite costly. We have a couple on deck to go in. I'm curious if there's been any conversations around cooperative procurement with other municipalities who are looking to do the same. I know there's other municipalities that have them, and not just in the Metro Vancouver area, but around the province, that might bring those costs down if there was that. And I'm just curious, maybe a little too far gone, but I'm curious if we've looked at that.
We haven't looked at that specifically, but that's a great idea. Council is to have that unified effort across municipalities in the Lower Mainland. So we haven't looked at it specifically, but definitely worth considering as part of those efforts. Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question is, you highlighted in one of your slides the renewal plans for existing washrooms. I imagine that as we work to build out our next 4-year capital plan, this will inform that planning work as well as what we want to see in the next capital plan?
Absolutely, and that will funnel through that process. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's all my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clausen.
Thanks very much for the presentation. The Portland loos, what have we learned from our experience with the Portland loos to date, and what will determine whether the pilots that are anticipated for Main and Powell and in Gastown would become permanently remain there?
Yeah, we're still learning. I think we're similar experiences across our automatic public toilets as well in terms of misuse and vandalism happening there. I think the thing to mention about the Portland Loos is just their durability, Councillor. The automatic public toilets have a number of things that often can go wrong and mechanically and so on. And so, we hope to compare that data and hopefully inform future site planning there.
Do we must have a sense of the operating costs, not just for these loos, but generally how much it costs us to run?
Yeah, the one at Main and Powell, for example, it's roughly $650,000 to install, so that's capital, and then approximately $100,000 per year to operate.
Okay. Thanks very much. I asked this in our briefing, but there are many popular places where we're a pretty active city where a lot of people go jogging, cycling, and go for walks and what have you. Have we considered how we might enhance washrooms in some of those kind of key areas? I'm thinking Point Grey Road, which is a pathway, obviously, the seawall, we have the Coopers Park one, but there are probably other places as well.
Yeah, so that map that I showed earlier was related to just typical areas of congregation, including recreation, so along the seawall and areas where people would run and cycle. And so that definitely will inform where we have unmet need in those areas through the capital planning process. Yeah.
Do you know at a high level how this extra effort on cross-jurisdictional management of this file will actually improve and enhance the levels of services? Like, what are the things that your team are going to be able to do by working closely with those other agencies?
I think two things. I think one is that advocacy piece. We're not the only municipality struggling with the misuse in our washroom facilities, and so balancing the demand for washrooms with that. So that's one piece, having that unified effort. And then what Councillor Dominato just mentioned in terms of procurement. So hoping to, through those partnerships and discussions with other governments as well as local governments, to see if there's opportunities there as well.
Thanks. And on the advocacy, do we have have we either secured or are we actively seeking any specific commitments from the province of BC?
There are the challenges. There's two things here, Councillor Klassen. The challenge, there's no dedicated washroom funding from other orders of government, so that's one piece. I think our short-term actions for 2026 are getting the secured funding for Pigeon Park attendant model and the Oppenheimer model. But our hope is that with continued discussion, continued partnership, that we can move towards multi-year funding agreements for these facilities.
Okay, thanks. Final question. How will council measure success of this initiative next year and beyond?
Yeah, so we're still fine tuning that. I think generally what we'll be reporting out on is just progress on actions themselves, and then relatively how they push those objectives, how we achieve those objectives. That's one piece. We'll be looking to the operational costs as well, hopefully see a reduction there, although with increased wayfinding, the caveat being we may see increased use there. And then lastly, through our 311 data, both Van 311 as well as the app, we get quite a bit of feedback on washrooms. So we hope to, washrooms as well as feces collection. So not completely causal, but we hope to see a trend there as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Those are my questions, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meisner.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. And thanks for the presentation on the washrooms. Obviously, really important issue. I'm wondering more about Portland Loos. It was mentioned by Councillor Klassen around the experiences, but there is the one at Crab Park, and I believe it's been there for about a year. Is that correct? Do you know how long it's been there?
I don't know specifically. A year sounds about right. Yeah, we can get back on the specific timing, but approximately,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess my question is, we're doing a pilot or talking about a pilot to install 2 more of them in Gastown, but isn't the Crab Park one kind of a pilot? Like, I'm just wondering why this is, moving so slowly.
Yeah, I would say that the social context is a bit different at Crab Park. We do need that additional support there to make sure that we have proper use of those facilities. I see Deputy City Manager Sandra Singhu.
Thank you so much, Sandra Singh, Deputy City Manager. The Crab Park Portland Loos have actually been in place for a number of years now, and they've performed very well. In in terms of their durability and safety in the public realm. And our general manager of Park Board, Steve Jackson, is here as well and can speak to their experiences
Okay.
managing those.
Okay. I guess given that, I mean, I'm just wondering why we would do a pilot in Gastown when this has, been in place for a few years. It's been a good experience. They're quite durable. We're not having any issues. And there's such a great need. I mean, why are we not just installing these all over the city?
I think one thing we'll learn from is the different areas in which they're located and maybe where they're could be suited as well. So, yeah.
Okay. How about TransLink? It was touched on by Councillor Dominato. It's great news about commercial Broadway, but what sort of conversations have we had or are we having with TransLink around Broadway line and washrooms in those new stations?
They've been very high level. I would say they are also faced with similar challenges, Councillor Miser, with costs and some of the misuse that happens. But we would continue to explore that around the Broadway line.
Mm-hmm. But the city doesn't have any provisions to require those stations to have washrooms at this time?
Not to my knowledge, but I can't answer that accurately.
Okay.
We can get back to you.
Okay. How about Granville Street? It's obviously an area with, lots of nightlife, people going out late hours. I know for businesses and residents, there's a lot of, urination and defecation in the alleys around Granville Street. Are we looking at any additional public washrooms on Granville Street?
Well, the data around that will inform future capital plan that comes forward for new washrooms, Councillor Meisner. That's what I would say on that. Is so that will come forward as part of a decision, specifically on Granville Street. At this point, not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
Granville.
so will the data come forward later this year ahead of the capital plan decisions for the next?
It will funnel through that process. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I look forward to seeing that data. How about the activation of the Balmoral lot? I know we have created public space there for the community. Is there washrooms, temporary washrooms there?
I might turn that to our General Manager of Arts, Culture, and Community Services to answer that specifically.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. There is some limited washroom provision on site for folks who are actively using the location for programming.
Okay. Is it one washroom, two washrooms? What does it look like?
It's in the form of a porta potty.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. How about new developments in terms of CACs or community benefits? Have we considered, especially in busy urban areas, downtown Broadway, looking at considering the provision of a washroom that was accessible from the outside as a public benefit? Has that been considered or looked at, or have you seen any proposals for it from developers?
Short answer is yes, Council, that will form part of our role as kind of an enabler in this space. The challenge with the CACs and ACCs is washrooms aren't a standalone asset or an amenity. They're part of a broader set, but part of the work of the framework will be identifying where we have those opportunities early and through the capital planning process to support that. Yeah.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, we have the framework now, but there's more work that needs to be done. Is that a strategy that's going to come back to council? I understand the data is coming back to council, but I'm just wondering, where do we go from here? We have the framework. What's the next step?
Yeah, so the framework itself is that high-level direction today with a number of objectives that will be approved or amended by council today. And then annually, we intend to work to report on approved actions and then seek direction on future actions, all under the guidance of the framework.
Okay, annually.
Yeah. Annually.
Okay, that's good news. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. Just a few more questions, and a couple may be directed towards Steve Jackson, our GM of Parks here. One is a question around and it's actually named here, the Granville Park washroom upgrade. I know that was set to be completed fall 2025. Can we just hear a bit of a status on that one? There's a new dog park, I think, in that area too, the tennis courts, that one there.
Good morning, Steve Jackson, General Manager of the Vancouver Park Board. Yeah, so Granville Park is in our 2026 plan to be renewed. I don't have a definitive date, but we could certainly get back to you with a timeline on that.
Okay, there is I've had a few questions because there is a sign up that says completion fall 2025, so we may just want to update it. I think it's important that the public's not thinking.
For sure, we will get that addressed.
Another question for you is around the access to washrooms, particularly we're a couple months away from Spring League, Little League, and we often hear about access to washrooms around our baseball diamonds and what have you. and some consistency, I think, is really what the public and users are looking for, that they can anticipate washrooms opening and washrooms closing at a set time. What's our approach this year to that?
Yeah, so our historical approach has always been to leverage our ranger and portable washroom cleaning crews to open and lock those washrooms on a daily basis. And so that obviously takes a lot of time to cover that geographical spread. And so it did mean washrooms were closed prior to, say, the 10 o'clock intended closure time. We're in the process now of shifting to automated locks at many of our washrooms. We completed 13 in 2025, and we're going to continue down that path in 2026. What that means is those washrooms will open at the intended time in the morning and shut at the intended time at night. So we will maximize the amount of time those washrooms are available. So yeah, I do remember that issue a couple of years ago that you had raised with us around a Little League. So we are looking to do more of that so that we are maximizing washroom provision.
And is that standardized across all? So I think like Quilchena or Trout Lake or other areas right across the city?
Yeah, so the early focus has been on trying to convert the ones that are in the more outer reaching areas, because again, that's the travel time that was preventing them being opened and closed in reasonable timeframes. In time, we hope to convert every single one of our washrooms to automated locks. Again, we're doing it in a somewhat strategic manner so that we're maximizing those for the crews that are doing the driving around the city to do that work.
Okay, I'll leave it that particular piece here. And appreciate that. Access from the exterior, so noting that with Marpole Arena, is this a new approach? So if the arena is all closed up for the night and it's 9:30, that washroom will actually still be accessible until a certain time?
That's correct. So if my memory serves me right, our most recent one is actually at the Carousel Rink. We did put an external door there, and that's great because we actually have the new track and field facility that was renewed last year. And so now users who are looking for washrooms during their nightly runs around that track, they've got an access point if the rink itself is closed for whatever reason.
Okay, so I'll leave that there for the park board. Thank you very much, aspect. Just a couple questions that's been raised, I think, because it's just been ongoing. My understanding from talking to TransLink is that the capital investment in washrooms at their stations really isn't the big hurdle. It's the operating. And so are there provisions being put in for future washroom use, let's say down the road? Because what we wouldn't want to do is have all these brand new stations and then wish we put in the plumbing and the infrastructure needed to build a washroom if and when the operating presented itself, so to speak. So
I can't speak specifically to TransLink, but that's the approach we'll be taking is looking where those opportunities are from a capital side to install, but potentially where a washroom could be. But you're hitting the nail on the head, Councillor Bly. Operations of washrooms typically is the pain point. And so it's about balancing our existing facilities, finding efficiencies there, combined with new and renewed facilities as well.
Okay. $100,000 a year to operate one Portaloo, is that what I heard?
Yeah, that was for, I believe the most recent data on that was, the Portland at Main and Powell, 100,000.
Can we just get a bit of a break? That's like hiring one FTE for a toilet. It just seems like, I know that's not what it's about. Can you help us explain, understand?
Yeah, and we may have to get back to you. I apologize, we don't have our engineering colleagues here today, but there are crews that go around to clean that site. And then maybe Ben, I'm not sure if it's part of the, I believe the street furniture contract there as well, that helps with that.
We'll get back to you on sort of a better breakdown of those costs, but it is both the people, but also for the parts, et cetera, needed. The Portland Loos tend to have a lower cost than our automatic public toilets, but there's still a cost for the metal work, et cetera, when things go awry.
Can we get an update, just a memo outlining all the costs that would be anticipated for these?
We can do that.
I'm sorry, we're beyond time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Orr.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Just my question is pretty simple. It's just around the sort of working with nonprofits on washrooms, and in particular, I'm thinking of Aboriginal Front Door and Watari, knowing that both those places have washrooms, but that their funding is leading up to March, and there's some uncertainty after that date. If you could sort of provide an update there.
Yeah. I'll turn it over to our General Manager of ACCS.
Thank you, Margaret Witkins, GMACCS. You have correctly highlighted that 320 Alexander and 390 Main Street are two very important spaces in terms of providing critical services, washrooms included in the downtown east side. We are in active conversations with the province related to that funding, which does currently come to a close at the end of March. And so no updates to provide relative to that, but it is true that they are a key part of the washroom provision within the neighborhood.
Great. Yeah, I think it's important to underscore that, how important that is. And I know Watari also has showers and things like that. So just a general question back, how many new washrooms can we sort of expect coming out of this framework? I know that's maybe a difficult question.
Yeah, it is a difficult question. What I will say is, again, is part of the framework and one of our early actions and actions that will continue is identifying those opportunities so we have them funneled in. We have a good pipeline of where they are. Of course, that becomes part of council's decision related to the capital plan and the trade-offs within that. I will say this year we have a series of new washrooms coming and renewals as well. I think there's 4 new washrooms and then 4 renewals coming. But that's not indicative of what to expect in the future, but just that we will be identifying those opportunities for decision through the capital plan.
And then just on the TransLink issue again, is there any leverage that the city has in terms of maybe, around their rezonings of TransLink's property that would be coming forward, that we could sort of use, to sort of encourage this washroom uptake?
Yeah, that will form part of our discussions with them as well as we're going to be looking at alternative delivery models and in that influencer role that we could play around that and our regulatory role there. So that will definitely form part of that work to come.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, lots of questions, but thank you for the presentation. I think one thing that I'm not seeing captured in any of this is hours of access. So Councillor Meisner was talking a bit about the Granville Entertainment District and defecation, urination, and alley, which I'm assuming happens after hours. Do we have an analysis of we have lots of washrooms available in parks, but they're closed at dark. And similarly, do we have an analysis that talks about the hours of access?
We do not, but we can look into that. What we do have analysis on, Councillor Fry, is where we have those incidents reported in the public around feces and feces collection in the public, but we can look at the analysis on the hours.
Is there, Hi, Ben.
Just on that, yes, for the majority of our washrooms, they are during regular business hours. However, through the street furniture contract, there's the AP, the automatic public toilets, as well as the Portland Loos that are going out that do operate 24/7, as well as some of the comfort stations in the downtown east side, which also have extended hours.
Well, I wanted to ask, that was one of my questions about the comfort stations, these historic underground comfort stations, the one at Victory Square on Hamilton, the one by Carnegie. Can you tell me a little bit about them? Because they're not mentioned here, and they're historic, and what's the operating cost? What are the hours?
So one is open from 6 a.m. to midnight. The other one is open 24/7. The operating costs are decently significant. I think combined it's 1.2 million annual operating costs to maintain those.
Wow, that is significant. That's a lot higher but these are full-time attendants.
These are full-time attendants, which are necessary for these spaces.
Yeah. Now, and who's paying? That's being paid by the City of Vancouver. I know there's been a conversation around the province should be paying for attendance and that kind of.
This will become part of the ongoing advocacy to the province, but to date, these have been held by city operating budgets.
And just for clarification, because I know in some of our briefing conversations, we've talked about models in other countries where they have a paid attendant and you pay a little bit to access a washroom. That is not applicable because of.
Great question, Councillor Fry. We do have limitations under regulations of the Public Health Act for charging for public toilets.
Right. So on the one hand, the province is not necessarily supporting us with the operational costs, but at the same time, they're preventing us from finding alternate means to, say, pay for operational costs.
I would say the province does support us in some areas, but we need more sustained funding in that regard. And then, yes, there is that legal limitation as well for alternative revenue.
So speaking of sustained funding, I see that, this is, and appreciate the sort of comprehensive nature of this. The park board seems to be doing a lot of heavy lifting in this sort of washroom strategy. How is that reconciled with their budget considerations? I know that there's been, the Auditor General early in this term suggested that we need better communication between park board and council over their operating budget, their capital needs, that kind of thing. How is their funding needs informed by our budget decisions?
I might turn that over to our general manager of Parks and Rec. I think generally, though, the framework in terms of the coordinated approach moving forward, we'll be making sure that we have those conversations on where to put investment and resources. I can't speak to the most recent budget process, however. I don't know if you want to add anything, Steve, or?
And I guess I'm more curious if there's, and Steve, this is definitely for you, it's like, is there a specific line item in like the parks budget when it comes to us, like, this is what it costs us to maintain washrooms throughout the city of Vancouver, not necessarily wrapped into a specific park per se?
Yeah, my understanding is they're embedded within the larger park amenities and facilities.
Yeah, so I'll answer the question, I guess, twofold. So in terms of capital delivery, we of course go through the city's capital planning process, and we do typically earmark a line item that focuses on new and renewed washroom provision. I want to say in our past plan, it was around $10 million allocated to that line item, and a washroom can be anywhere from $1 to $4 million, depending on what you're delivering. In terms of operating costs, we would always factor in operating impacts of capital as we add new washrooms, so that's the primary factor. And similar to conversations we've had with council in the past around, moderately dingy washrooms in our community centers, we have similar standards in our parks. So the desire to improve cleanliness would be a process of investment that we'd go through with our board, and we would, of course, seek that funding through council if we weren't able to provide the funding ourselves through our own revenues.
I mean, I think germane to this larger conversation, it would be worthwhile to see that as a very specific line item for maintaining washrooms throughout our parks, because we're asking you to do a lot of the heavy lifting here in this strategy, and I think it's. Thank you, Steve, and
thank you, Councillor Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so I think many of my questions were asked, but just to follow up, I think one thing is missing in this report is the human resource plan. So I know there will be some ongoing conversation with the province regarding the attendance for the washroom. So how can we, make sure that there's enough human resource in attendance to support this washroom?
Just clarification, councillors, related to the attendant model specifically?
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the core of our advocacy efforts with the province, to make sure that we have those facilities that the community is used to proper funding so that they can have that attendant model. And typically that's delivered through peer programs, Councillor Zhou, so working with agencies in the area that are well connected with the community that can provide that attendant and also connect those residents with other resources.
Okay, so I understand the advocacy piece with the province. We all know how much they are struggling with the financial situation. So if there's no enough financial support from the province, what is our plan moving forward? Because some of the very critical area, we need attendant to be there to support people, to help with the vandalism.
If that happens, we'd have to return to council for direction on that.
Okay, so there's
Related
no
to the
plan
budget.
B to make sure that we can deliver those washrooms.
Again, it's continuing those advocacy efforts to see the value in that, and then if that were to happen, we'd need direction from council.
Okay, thanks. The other question I have here is about the performance indicators. I'm looking at this report. There's not too much information about the performance indicators. So I'm wondering, what are the measurable outcome for this initiative, very important initiative?
Yeah, a great question. I can't remember who asked it before. I think Councillor Klassen mentioned this. So we'll bring that forward as part of our update, the final measurement. But generally, things that we're considering is progress against the actions themselves, and then how those actions are achieving the objectives within the report. There's also data that we'll be collecting through 311 and Van 311 as well on user experiences with washrooms. And then, Council, qualitatively, we hear from the community through engagements on other plans that will help inform that as well, and how we're managing success.
So what you are saying is there will be some concrete measurement indicators present to council to get some update every year.
There will be as part of this next update.
Okay, and there will be a target and okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thanks. That's all my question. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney.
Thanks. How much expenditure on washrooms is incorporated into the 2026 budget, and what does this year's capital budget look like? Are we going to see an increase in expenditure on washrooms?
No, all of the currently provided washrooms are budgeted for as part of the 2026 operating budget.
And what are we looking at for the capital budget?
So what's currently being delivered is already funded through the 2023-2026 capital plan, and then the next capital plan will be coming to council as part of those discussions. I believe it's imminent here.
Fair enough. What are some of the costs that the city incurs as a result of inadequate washrooms? I'm kind of thinking about things like street cleaning, like the grant that we give to the BIAs.
Yeah, in terms of so we have the feces removal that happens. There's partnerships with Mission Possible. Some of the BIAs also are part of that with the, I can't remember the name of the program. I think it's called the Poop Ferry. And so there's a number of different programs with partnerships in the downtown east side and downtown area to look at or to collect feces in the public realm.
What does the trade-off look like in the street furniture contract between getting money back and investing more in public washrooms?
I might turn over to my colleague, Ben Pollard.
So it depends on the type of washroom. So we are actually currently in conversations with the provider to look at what our next model might be. The trade-off right now is decently significant. They do the maintenance costs on the automatic public toilets are quite extensive. They are not a direct cost to us, but they are a foregone revenue for us. And so part of the conversation for the next, and the negotiation for the next street furniture contract includes a discussion of how do we keep these things open and how do we minimize the ongoing operation costs so that we can plan for capital better.
How much clear revenue do we get back from the street furniture contract?
It depends on how the advertising market is doing in any given year. We're expecting this year to be around $7 million. That's net of, so just to be clear, that also includes them covering the operating and capital maintenance for all the facilities.
And that just goes back into general revenue?
Yes, that goes back into general. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the issues with providing more robust toilets or outward-facing toilets at the Balmoral Hotel site? Is it just cost?
I don't know the specifics of Balmoral Heights. Right?
Thank you for the question. The Balmoral, of course, is an interim installation, and so it was put in place in such a way to kind of manage the overall costs. Certainly putting more robust washrooms there would require ongoing operating costs that were outside of the scope of the project budget at this time.
All right, so it's just that it's a temporary thing and we've got a low cost cap on it.
Ultimately, it does boil down to resourcing and also recognizing that there are existing washrooms within the area for which we don't have ongoing funding.
Okay. With TransLink, are we making, what progress are we making on simply the infrastructure element of getting bathrooms put in stations, given that we can, I mean, they don't have to be open if the operating costs can't be covered at the moment, but it does seem like a pretty major missed opportunity to fail to even build in visitor toilets.
Yeah, so I would say the conversations with TransLink are early but ongoing. I think they are also faced with similar challenges like us, Councillor Maloney, with that operating piece and needing to distribute it through the network across the Lower Mainland.
Yeah, all right. And in terms of the Granville Street plan, I know, I mean, what will that look like? I did propose an amendment to have a permanent bike parking facility with permanent public toilets incorporated, but unfortunately that wasn't passed. But how else might we be looking at incorporating public toilets into the Granville Street plan?
I think where the work leading up to the framework is, and then the framework itself will in two areas.
And I'm sorry, we're at time.
Thank
you. Thank you. Okay. So that's the end of the questions. Would someone like to move a motion? Great. Thank you, Councillor Bly. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. Council, is there any discussion? Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for the update. Obviously, this is a really important issue in our city, and everyone understands the need for people to have places to go. And it's great to have this framework. Personally, I would like to see a bit of a acceleration of the actions around this, particularly around Portland Loos. From my perspective, it seems like a pretty proven technology. And actually, in my research, I was aware of the one at Crab Park, but there's also one at Cooper's Park. And that's been in place since late 2022, and I understand it's operating quite well. I have seen some photos of the interiors of the Portland Loos, having quite a bit of graffiti on them. So I understand that's been reported to Park Board, but want to ensure that, they're being checked regularly and ensuring that they're clean and that graffiti is dealt with. But the good news was they appear to still be functional. And I know with the APTs, the automated public toilets, the maintenance is a challenge. And I know there was reference as well to the maintenance costs of $100,000, I believe, for a toilet at Main and Powell Street. But I'm pretty sure that that is an automated public toilet still and not a Portland Loo. So I'll have to swing by there and check. But I feel like the evidence is in on the Portland Loos, and I'm hoping we can accelerate the work. And I think we're really at this stage where, given the data that we have around the gaps in washroom service around the city and high traffic areas, I want to see us plotting out new locations for those. I understand, obviously, we need the framework. We need to, analyze the data, but this is a pretty urgent issue in our city, and I think we have a good solution that we already have in a few locations. So I would like to see that work accelerated, but I am encouraged to see actions this year and also the annual reporting. So I guess you could say I'm flush with excitement, but I just want to see a bit more acceleration of this clearly urgent need for our growing city where people need places to go. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much, and appreciate the work on this, and would have to agree with Councillor Meisner in terms of the timing and urgency, and I appreciate staff are working towards that. It was really during COVID that this issue became escalated, particularly around private businesses raising the alarm bells, needing to sort of subsidize, if you will, the city's lack of available washrooms in a pandemic. So sort of like the most urgent situation, of course. That being said, I think what's missing from this report, or a bit of the elephant in the room, is of course safe and self-contained, dignified housing is a core piece of solving this issue. Yes, we've got everyday folks that might, we talk about seniors, we talk about inclusion, we talk about our parks, we talk about our rec centers. But the reality is the raising the alarm bells of this issue really is around folks who struggle to call anywhere home and find an accessible washroom and be able to plan their day in a way that's dignified. Where their life is just predictable and stable enough to know where they can use the washroom. That's not covered in this report, and I don't really expect it to be, because that's a much bigger issue. But if we don't talk about it in the context of the actual problem, we're just sort of moving around paper, pretending like that's not the really core underlying issue of key areas of our city that are really struggling. Hastings Crossing BIA, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars going towards a poop ferry program because it's that big of a problem, and Gastown. Not to mention, of course, the downtown east side and adjacent areas. And the folks that are struggling to find a washroom cannot be blamed for this. This is not their problem. This is a lack of housing. It's a lack of dignified housing. And so when I look at how are we advocating to the province for funding of washrooms, I think we've missed the point entirely. We need to be advocating and allowing the provincial government to build as much supportive housing as possible in our city, so as many people as possible have access to housing, and with every one of those units comes a toilet. And then they can have their own predictable routine in their day-to-day. And I think that that really is the underlying issue. So I just want to say that I support this work and I appreciate it, but we're talking about Band-Aids here instead of systemic solutions. And so I also just want to know that we're focusing on the big picture.
And that's what I'll be pushing for. A lot of my sort of day-to-day minutia on the washroom strategy was covered in my questions. And so I'm not going to repeat all of that, but it stands, I think, as an opportunity that we do control. But there is a massive piece of this that we can be better partners on, I think, with the provincial government to build more supportive housing, and we should be accelerating that at the greatest pace possible. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you to staff for the framework. I think it's a really good start, and I think it is important. You noted in your early comments the presentation about, these are my own words, but trying to eliminate some of the silos in terms of how we work as a city and ensuring that we have coordination across all departments to look at holistically the city and enabling and ensuring that we have public washrooms available, and also not just adding new ones, but also the renewal of the existing ones. I would wholeheartedly agree with my colleagues, Councillor Meisner and Councillor Bly, around when we talk about this framework and setting it in the context of around the need for dignified housing for individuals. That certainly was a part of this conversation around individuals who do not have homes and do not have washrooms and are using the streets and back alleys as our washroom, and that's not dignified for anyone. And then I think the other part of this is just recognizing as a civil society the need for everyone has to go at some point, and whether you've got a young baby or a toddler or you're a woman or an adult or a senior, everyone needs the use of a washroom at some point, and I think we need to be thinking more holistically about public transit. That's why I've raised that more than once, is around the fact that I have yet to travel in my travels where you would not go to a train station or any public transit, there wouldn't be a washroom. And I think that's something we need to work on collectively in the region, is to ensure that our public transit sites have washrooms. And then just for individuals who are coming to visit our city, and I mean, we're going to be hosting FIFA later this year, but we're a destination city. And so the work around wayfinding and ensuring that we have accessible washrooms for the use of visitors who come to our city, I think is another part of this. So multi-pronged, I think there's different needs, different populations being served, but overall, I think this is a great starting point, is to have this framework in place. More work to be done, obviously, but I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for the work on this. Echoing some of the comments from some of my colleagues really around the urgency on this file. And I mean, nothing says urgency like the need to relieve yourself and having no place to go. And I know we've talked about, like folks experiencing health and housing challenges, but really this is a universal issue for everybody. And all of us at some point find ourselves urgently needing a place to go. And it's, at that point, it's the number one issue, maybe the number two issue. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. But I would like to see, I appreciate this work, but I'd like to see more of an accelerated approach. Certainly, I think that there is that opportunity to look at how we could really amp up this strategy. And I think it's really critical to add that lens, as I mentioned earlier, around the hours of access, because having all these on the map makes lots of sense until you start to break it down, and it's like, well, what if your hours, suddenly that map is very denuded when you don't have the hours contemplated. And I think, and this isn't a reflection on this strategy at all, but I think more broadly, I lament the fact that I think, last term when we were discussing FIFA, I had imagined that FIFA, and as it's been described, the Super Bowl of kind of attendance, that it might accelerate and provide us with opportunities to leverage that and provide more infrastructure that could support permanent washroom infrastructure in the city and dealing with the onslaught of tourists and sport fans we're expecting. So I'm more broadly disappointed that this opportunity did not avail us of more public washrooms. And I think, lastly, one thing I feel that we also need to address, the elephant in the room, is that the operating costs of these public washrooms, accessible as they are, comes at a cost because of vandalism and destruction. And how is it that other cities manage to have public washrooms that aren't subject to that extent of vandalism? Where is it that we as a society are missing that kind of opportunity to collectively steward these public assets so that it's available for everyone? And that's something more broadly, I think that might inform a future strategic approach, and something certainly that I might take on to research, and just how is it that other jurisdictions can support public washrooms and not see them fall into expensive repair needs just from mindless vandalism. So, but thank you for the work on this, and appreciate that we're moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maloney.
Thanks. Yeah, and thank you, staff, for your work on this. A lot of what I would like to say has been covered in terms of the urgency, but I do particularly want to talk about how access to certain access to washrooms can be the difference between people that suffer from certain illnesses and disabilities, whether they can actually get out and about and enjoy our city or not. And making things easier for parents, including changing facilities. You know, there's not a lot about baby change tables in this report, but that's just another thing that makes life easier for people who want to get out and enjoy our city. And certainly it was an issue for me in the by-election campaign. I remember I bonded with a lot of parents of young kids in parks when I was asking about where the nearest public toilet was. So I would like to see a more expenditure and more urgency put on expanding the number of public toilets available all over our city, and the hours that they're open. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen, and council, if you can please register your vote. Great, and that passes unanimously, and that completes report number 1. Thank you very much for all your work on this. Great. Item number 2, 2026 Cultural Grants Projects, Advanced Multi-Year Spaces, and Social Policy Grant. Before we begin this item, does anyone believe they have a conflict of interest? If they do, you should report it. Anyone? Great. This item does not have a presentation. Council members, you have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of team members. Are there any questions? Seeing Councillor Meisner.
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor. I had a read through the grant report, and one thing I was curious about was around the, I guess, delay in the relocation of the dugout to Main Street. I understand that they've been relocated temporarily to Hastings Street. Is it a city-owned building that they're currently in? And that's the grant?
That's correct. So 57 East Hastings is where East Side Works previously was. And so there was a period during which the dugout was co-located with East Side Works. East Side Works has subsequently vacated that location. And so to continue there on a temporary basis, the dugout would require a lease. And this report recommends an in-kind grant to enable that continuation.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious. I thought everything was kind of sorted with the Main Street relocation, and I was following it closely. And it says unforeseen structural work. So I'm just curious, why that was unforeseen. It seems like a pretty major issue if it's a 2-year delay.
Yes, and we can certainly provide further detail as is needed, but this came through the due diligence at the time of confirming the lease. It's a BC Housing-owned facility, and through that process, some structural work was identified, which is not out of the norm, but was not anticipated in terms of the project timelines.
Okay, and BC Housing is the agency responsible for funding that structural work?
Correct. That's I would need to confirm with certainty the cost allocation, but in general, they're accountable.
Okay, but it's not the city?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're now going to hear from registered speakers to this report. Public speakers should state whether they are in support or opposition to the recommendations and may only speak once. I'll ask speakers if they are residents of Vancouver if it's not so noted on the speakers list. Please note that a new podium has been installed for public speakers on the left side of the public gallery, which would be to my right. Public speakers should adjust the podium to a comfortable height for speaking into the microphone. So our first speaker is Dinah Warren, Executive Director, Indigenous Initiatives, Emily Carr University, Aboriginal Gathering Place.
Tansei, good morning, city councilors. It's really great to be here. Oh, thanks. It was like giving me a little bit of wooziness there. I'm here to show my support for the arts and culture budget, particularly for recommendation A on the 2026 cultural grants for projects advanced multi-year and spaces. We are a new applicant to the City of Vancouver's arts and culture program, and I am also a resident of Vancouver. So. My name is Dana Warren. I'm from the Montana Cree First Nation. I'm from Treaty 6, which is Central Alberta, and my reservation's Musqueam. I'm from my mother's, a registered member of my mother's community, which is like the smallest community of 4 nations on our reservation. I'm also oops, just losing my notes here. I'm also I work at Emily Carr for the executive director, Indigenous Initiatives, and I kind of have a 2-part role at Emily Carr. I help manage the Aboriginal Gathering Place with my team, and I'm also work with administration and the board or campus president, Trish Kelly. So I just wanted to preface this presentation to just express my deep gratitude. We were recognized back in October with a proclamation for our centennial year. So hopefully you guys remember that. That was really beautiful of you guys to recognize that incredible milestone that we've had at the campus. And for 1 year, we've been doing all kinds of different arts programming with all the different departments. So our department is obviously the Indigenous student department, but the Aboriginal Gathering Place is also an arts and cultural resource for both the city as well as across Canada. We have so many amazing projects and workshops and work with incredible lineup of Indigenous artists. So our grant application to the Arts and Culture Program is to support a symposium program to celebrate ECU centennial. We're bringing in artists such as notable artists as Robert Davidson, Lawrence Polyak-Lipton, Nadia Meyer, Laura Wheelack, and honorary doctorates Rebecca Balmer and Chief Janice George, just to name a few of the artists. We are programming a considerable group Indigenous alumni exhibition, which will be on show from February 20th to March 7th. We will do a closing reception on March 5th, Thursday, from about 5 to 8 p.m., and we invite you guys to please attend it. And we're also doing a group symposium with panel discussions with the alumni. The alumni, Indigenous artists, started attending the institution in the early 60s. Almost done. And we have about over 350 Indigenous alumni that we've uncovered for our project. So I just want to again thank you for the opportunity to explain the benefits of this funding for our program and to bring attention to the impact of our project in the local arts community.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker is Aaron Davis.
Hey there. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate. I'm here on behalf of Theatre Terrific to speak in support of the recommendation before you, specifically the 1-year extension of a grant that supports our operating funds. We're one of the many organizations in these recommendations, and our stories may vary, but they are equally as impactful. Theatre Terrific has been committed to creating access to the arts, specifically in the disability community, for the last 40 years. Since 1985, we've been answering one vital question: who belongs on a Vancouver stage? There is tension right now in our arts community, and I know that you guys hear a lot about what's not working. And so I want to use this time to tell you about what is working. Because your investment in us is working. The stability of multi-year funding helps create a permanent community for artists who are often told that they don't belong. In 1985, one of our founding members use the metaphor of the pearl and the oyster to define who we are. The oyster takes in an irritation and it can't expel it, it can't get rid of it, and so it wraps it in beauty until it becomes a jewel. And that's what artists with disabilities do every day. We take the barriers of a city society and a theater sector not built to include us, and through the rigor of theater, we turn art into things that change Vancouver. This funding is the grain of sand for us. It makes that pearl possible. Our artistic director currently, Kevin Jazino, he describes it as making mountains out of pennies, with no disrespect. In today's economic climate, we master the art of delivering outsized impact on a very modest budget. The funding that you provide contributes to a portion of our operating budget, but we have to run very lean. So this $20,000 grant isn't just a subsidy, it's a pillar of our foundation. Even a small shift in support directly impacts our ability to provide training, representation, and an opportunity in theater for artists with diverse needs and abilities. This funding is how we turn the culture shift policy into a reality, fueling a 19% annual growth in our community impact. That means more disabled people in their first ever theater training. It means spaces and systems being transformed to meet their needs. We recognize the difficult choices that you face with this budget, and we're here to show you that a yes today is a high-yield investment in a 40-year legacy. We ask for your continued partnership so that we can keep removing barriers and making pearls for another 40 years. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much for coming in. That is the end of our speakers list. And so once again, I want to thank everyone. Great. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bly, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Council, is there any discussion? Seeing no one in the queue, I'm going to call the vote. Can we please all go to the voting panel? And if everyone can register their vote. Great. Thank you very much. And that passes unanimously. Great. So that completes report number 2. The next report we have is report number 5, and that is 208 East Georgia Street Single Room Accommodation SRA bylaw conversion permit. So before we begin, does anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest? Councillor Klassen, I'm assuming you're not declaring a conflict. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this item doesn't have a presentation, and Councillor Klassen, you held this item, so you have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of team members.
Mic on. There we go. Thanks very much, Mayor. I just, with Council's indulgence, just want to ask a few questions about this unique project. I've been a very strong supporter of recovery programming and really look forward to seeing Providence Health's Road to Recovery as being a big success. So this came out as a bit of a unique and interesting model where we're seeing a current SRO that is going to be turned into one of the kind of bases of the Road for Recovery organization. So I just have a few basic questions about how the model will work, just because, again, it's quite unique. So just in terms of capital responsibility, do you know who will be responsible for the tenant improvements on this conversion? Providence Health, the current owner, or another partner, or how those costs are being funded?
Monica Church, Senior Planner with SROs and Supportive Housing. The renovations are being funded through Providence Health as well as through private donations that are supportive of this program.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Will the ownership of the building change as part of the conversion, or will it remain with the current owner? And if ownership does not change, what long-term controls are in place to ensure the building continues to be used for recovery purposes? And I realize, I think there's a 15-year agreement.
Yeah, so the ownership is retained by BD, but the private developer, they have entered into a 15-year lease with Providence Healthcare with two 5-year options for extension, which they will decide at that time. We also have a housing agreement on title that secures it maximum shelter component for 15 years to align with the lease. There are no guarantees at this point beyond the 15 years that it will continue to be for Road to Recovery purposes, but the building will remain SRA designated after that period of time. So that designation will remain in place.
Fantastic. Okay. And what conditions or reporting requirements are attached to the conversion permit so council can be confident the recovering outcomes and potential neighborhood benefits or impacts are being responsibly managed?
So the Providence Healthcare, as part of their development permit application, they submitted an operational letter which kind of outlines all the measures that will be in place to ensure the safety and security of both the residents of the building as well as the surrounding community. And they're committed to being a good neighbor and have a good track record of that with the other sites that they operate.
Okay, thanks. And just from a broader standpoint, how does this fit in? How does this particular facility, are we aware how this fits into the province's Road to Recovery framework and what commitments are in place to ensure the program remains stable and successful over the long term?
Yeah, so as part of Road to Recovery, there is the detox phase, and then there's the transitional beds, both of which are at St. Paul's Hospital. And so this is the recovery-based residential part of the program. So people that have successfully come out of those other stages and are now ready to have abstinence-based recovery, and this is a part of that recovery journey for them. And so the use of substances is not permitted as part of this specific program. And the Providence is hoping to expand this because there's obviously a huge need for it.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we know that having those beds available is really key to the success. So anyway, I just thought it was such a unique program. I couldn't resist pulling it out just for a few questions, and you've done that. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Claassen, seconded by Councillor Kirby-Young. Any discussion? See no one in the queue, I'm going to call the vote. Can we please go to the voting panel? And if you can please register your vote. Councillor Montague. Thank you very much. Okay, that passes unanimously, and that completes report number 5. Okay, moving right along, we're going to go to bylaws. We have 16 bylaws on the agenda for enactment. Bylaw number 17 has been withdrawn. Thank you, by the way. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes that they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anybody have a conflict they wish to disclose? Great. Okay. So bylaw number 1 was from the public hearing on July the 25th, 2024. Councillors Fry, Claassen, and Mayor Sim were absent for this item at the public hearing, and Councillors Maloney and or were not on council at the time of this public hearing. Councillor Fry, have you reviewed the proceedings and will you be voting on the enactment? Great. Councillor Claassen? Great. Councillor Maloney? Councillor Orr? And I have not and will not. Bylaws 2 and 3 were from the public hearing on June the 23rd, 2022. Councillors Claassen, Maloney, Meisner, Montague, Orr, Zhao, and myself were not on council at the time of the public hearing. Councillor Claassen, have you reviewed the proceedings and will you be voting on the enactment? Great. Councillor Maloney? Councillor Meisner?
Have and I will.
Councillor Montague?
I have and I will.
Councillor Orr? Councillor Joe? And I have not and will not. Bylaw 4 was from the public hearing on September the 12th, 2023. Councillor Kirby-Young was absent for this item at the public hearing, and Councillors Maloney and Orr were not on council at the time of the public hearing. Councillor Kirby-Young, have you reviewed the proceedings and will you be voting on the enactment? Thank you, Councillor Maloney. And Councillor Orr. Thank you very much. Bylaw 12 was from the public hearing on July the 10th, 2025. Councillor Montague was absent for this item at the public hearing. Councillor Montague, have you reviewed the proceedings and will you be voting on the enactment?
I have and I will.
Thank you. Bylaw 14 was from the public hearing on December the 4th, 2025. Councillor Fry and myself were absent for this item at the public hearing. Councillor Fry, have you reviewed the proceedings and will you be voting on the enactment? Great, thank you. And I have not and I will not. We will need to vote on bylaw 2 separately as bylaw 3 is subject to the approval of bylaw 2. Would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaw 2? Great. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Claassen. That was moved by Councillor Dominato. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaws 1 and 3 through 16? Great, Councillor Claassen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Meisner. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. The list of approved bylaws can be found on the city's website. Moving along. Okay, administrative motions. Number 1, resolution closure and sale of a portion of road adjacent to 2235 Charles Street. Before we begin, does anybody believe they have a conflict to disclose? Okay. Council, are there any questions to team members? Okay. Okay. So, Councillor Kirby-Young moved the motion, seconded by Councillor Dominato, I believe. Was that right? Okay. Council, is there any discussion? Great. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Okay. Notice of council member motions. Are there any notices of council member motions for the upcoming standing committee meeting? A reminder to please state the title of the motion and the date of the standing committee meeting on which you intend to move the motion, and be sure to send the title and date of the standing committee meeting via email to the city clerk. So I'm in the queue. So I'd like to call two notice of motions. The first one is for the standing committee meeting on February the 4th, 2026, for a motion titled A World Cup for Everyone, Exploring Free Public Viewing Opportunities at BC Place and the PNE Amphitheater. The second one I will be calling will be a motion for the standing committee meeting on February the 4th, 2026 as well, for a motion titled Igniting Our Spirits, Bringing Vancouver Together Through Summer Celebration. Councillor Montague.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm calling notice of motion for the Standing Committee, February the 4th, and the title is Strengthening Public Safety Infrastructure.
Thank you. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm calling out notice of motion for Standing Committee on City Finance and Services on February 4th. The title is Honoring the Horse, Saving Vancouver's Iconic Lunar New Year Community Gala in Chinatown. It's co-submitted by myself and Councillor Kirby-Young.
Thank you. Councillor Orr.
Thank you. Yes, this will be for the Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities on February 4th. A motion titled Advancing Democratic Innovation in Vancouver Municipal Elections to Increase Voter Turnout and Improve Democratic Legitimacy, and Reducing Business-Generated Organic Waste to Meet Vancouver's Climate Emergency Action Plan Targets, and that is co-submitted by Councillor Fry.
Thank you. Councillor Maloney.
The first one of mine is, they're both for Wednesday, February the 4th. The first one is before and after the bell, extending school zone speed limits to keep children safe. And the second one is bus to move, prioritising transit trouble spots for snow and ice removal.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving to new business. We have one item of new business on the agenda today, and that's requests for leaves of absence. So this motion has been circulated to council at the beginning of the meeting and is available on the screen. Let's all take a look there. Make sure. Scroll back up just a tiny bit. Thank you very much. So everyone got a chance to review it? Okay, Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Thank you. Council, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Council, are there any other items of new business? Seeing no one in the queue, I'm going to move on to inquiries and other matters. Council, are there any inquiries or other matters? Councillor Dominato.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've put this in writing to the city manager's office, but I also wanted to raise it here because I think it's of public interest. I am curious, and I think other members of council will be in an update with respect to the review undertaken by Larry Campbell, who was appointed by the province It was intended to be a 6-month review related to services and coordination in the downtown east side with a contract end of March 31st, 2026. And so I'm curious if when we do receive that update, if we could, if we're anticipating, I know that staff are looking to get more information informally, but I'm curious if there's anything further at this time that they can provide as an update.
Thank you so much, Councillor, for the inquiry. Sandra Singh, Deputy City Manager. So in terms of an update, Mr. Campbell continues to meet in the community. He most recently met with the Downtown Eastside Neighborhood Liaison Table, and I had a conversation with him yesterday. We are looking to provide an opportunity for him to connect with council. So that is something that's underway, and we've asked the province for a midterm update.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. I would like an update on the progress and timing of the installation of the flashing pedestrian beacon outside Lord Byng's Secondary at the intersection of 16th and Wallace. At the end of January 2024, a Lord Byng student experienced life-changing injuries as a result of a crash. And I swung past there on the weekend, and I saw that the flashing pedestrian beacon that was promised still hasn't been installed 2 years after the crash.
Councillor, thank you for the inquiry. I'll follow up with engineering services and we'll provide an update to council.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in the queue, can we have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Clausen, sorry, he beat you to the punch, Councillor Dominato, but seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.